Gordon, it's great to see you again. There's so much here to unpack, but I'd love you just to give the audience a sense of some of the ways in which the Chinese regime is engaging in this totalitarian surveillance and direction of its citizens.
Yeah, by next year, Steve, they plan to have a nationwide social credit system in place. This will give every Chinese citizen a constantly updated score based upon observable behaviors. So, for instance, jaywalking or a social media post about Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler. All of these will change scores. And people with low scores will not be able to either, for instance, put their kids in private school, buy a home, get on a plane or a train. They're meant to be able to actually just restrict people to their homes, which is what they're thinking about. So, and when you put together the concentration camps that are in Tibet and Xinjiang, this really is a social control, totalitarian state.
Now, let's just look at one bit of that. You mentioned jaywalking. Let's unpack that. How do they know if you've been jaywalking so that they can use it to affect your social credit score?
Well, next year they plan to have 626 million surveillance cameras in place. They've already got a number of them there. This is going to be a totally observed society. And it feeds into this social credit system along with all sorts of other information and data. You know, technology is enabling the Chinese regime to go for total control. You know, we talk about China as authoritarian, but they're moving past that back to a totalitarianism, something that we haven't seen since the 1950s.
What comparison are you drawing there with the 1950s? That's very interesting.
Well, this is almost going back to a Maoist society, which seems hard to conceive of because we're now in a much more modern world. But because it's modern, China is able to use this technology, and they're using artificial intelligence. You know, they're using AI, for instance, to try to predict which people will commit crimes. This is Minority Report, but in reality.
The surveillance is amazing because, of course, that is one of the centerpieces in 1984 of the government there. Just literally, you know, they have sort of cameras in your home, you know, screens that actually monitor what you do and report on any transgressive behavior. This is real now in China, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. In the northwestern part of China, which China calls Xinjiang, and which the Muslim Uyghurs say is East Turkestan, they're now putting Chinese officials into people's homes to monitor them. And this is 24/7. So clearly, this is not just the camera in your home. This is a Chinese official there. And of course, they've got the concentration camps there where you have at least 1.1 million Chinese. This is just horrific.
It is just, I mean, thank you so much for being so clear about it. That's why I'm so glad that you could join us to talk about it. I mean, I just don't think this is well enough known. I mean, we talk about China in terms of, you know, ripping us off on trade, and that's certainly bad enough. But the fact that you've got this regime behaving like this, extending its control, and very clearly wanting to export this around the world and to become the dominant superpower is something that should frighten us all, don't you think?
Oh, well, certainly. You know, they've got these concentration camps in the northwestern part of the country. They're now building them in Tibet in the southwest. We probably are going to see them through the rest of the country as well. And, you know, they're actually scoring foreign companies. So, you know, this is an ambition to actually dominate the world with their surveillance. And, of course, they're surveilling us in our own country, Steve. So we've got to be extremely concerned about China's reach beyond its own borders.
Just quickly on that point, give us some of the ways that that's happening, how they're surveilling us here.
Well, the Ministry of State Security officials have been operating in the United States, especially on college campuses where there are large numbers of Chinese students. We know that Chinese diplomats and their agents actually monitor, surveil those students and tell them what to think and what to do. And we've allowed that. So this is on us. But there are so many ways that China actually peeks into the U.S. Through its network of spies. They've got this 1,000 grains of sand approach. It is just comprehensive.
Well, honestly, fantastic and frightening information there, Gordon. Really, really appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.